What is shakin', Internet? Welcome to the Weekly Coin, a weekly podcast discussion forum for the game Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft. I'm your host, Salts, and this week's topic is the aggressive meta. Welcome to the Weekly Coin, a weekly show discussing topics from Hearthstone Blizzard's CCG. I apologize for the delay in this week's episode, just a very busy week and weekend with Thanksgiving and family being sick, etc., etc. Last time, we discussed how Blizzard is balancing the game and what effects they may have on the way the game is played. I asked what people thought Blizzard's biggest change was, so let's look at some responses. Greg Blanco writes, Battle Rage was terrible, then it was awesome, and now it's kinda okay. I can't use it in my Charge Warrior deck because nothing gets hurt without dying, but I like the changes so far. Thanks. Thanks, Greg. Next up is Sad Pandaran writes, one day I'll get into the beta, probably when it's open, and then I'll be happy that Blizzard is balancing around me and my small set of basic cards. I'll probably never get to the big leagues like most of the player base, so I'd rather than balance around the peons and let the pros sort out the best stuff, since they'll do that no matter how balanced the game is. If you'd like to submit a comment or topic suggestion, you can either add one to the comments below or send an email to the.weekly.coin@gmail.com. So today's topic is the aggressive meta. Or meta? I don't know how you say it. I say meta. I want to talk about the meta of the game since it seems to shift around a lot. I heard someone talk about the trinity of card games. There's the aggressive cards, the control cards, and the combo cards. Generally, aggressive cards are ones that are intended to rush down your opponent quickly as fast as possible. Control cards are intended to draw out the game or delay your opponent from killing you very quickly. And combo cards are cards that rely on other cards to bring out their real effectiveness. I named this episode Aggressive Meta, but I want to clarify. Right now, in lower tiers of play, you'll be seeing a lot of aggressive decks, like the OTK Hunter and the Charge/Weapon Warrior. This is the way the meta was for the last few weeks. People wanted to play aggressive cards that would end the game quickly. A lot of these decks stemmed from BlizzCon or tournaments around that time, so you can kind of see where they're coming from. However, people are already seeing a shift towards the control decks, especially at higher ends of the game. The control decks generally don't work well against aggressive decks because the key idea of control is removing your opponent's minions from the field and keeping yourself alive for the late game when you have heavy hitters or big spells to take over the game. Aggressive decks lean in on the whittle away effect, trying to take you down a hit at a time, whereas control tries to wait until later with bigger guys and bigger plays. That just leaves the combo cards. So combo cards are a bit special because they basically coexist with the other types, aggressive and control. Generally, these kind of cards, or decks, have a core strategy that revolve around specific cards. A prime example would be the Murloc Warlock deck. It's an aggressive deck because it wants to drop lots of Murlocs quickly, with the Warlock hero power getting you more draws. But it's a combo deck as well because it focuses on getting the Murlocs that buff other Murlocs on the field. Now, let's get back into why aggressive decks were so popular recently. Most of the aggressive decks relied on brute force, meaning that they planned on putting more stuff on the field than the opponent could deal with. If you were playing a control deck, then often you would find yourself trading evenly, such as one card for one card, but your opponent would continue playing minions. If I had a high-cost minion in my hand, or spells that didn't outright kill a minion on the field, such as one that did 2 damage but the minions all had 3 health, then I start losing value, and either have nothing to play, or nothing to actually stop the incoming damage to me. The first solution to this was to use AoE spells if you had them. Mage had it good here, because they had nice and cheap AoE under Arcane Missiles, which I think is probably one of the best cards in the game in my opinion, and Arcane Explosion. Flame Strike was too expensive, but it could be used in a pinch, and with some spell damage you could wipe a board very easily, but you had to have the right cards. Other classes had options too. Priests had Holy Nova, Shaman had Lightning Storm, Warlock had Hellfire, etc. But all of these relied on getting that one AoE card, and if you weren't playing against an aggressive deck, that card seemed completely ineffective against other control decks. So the second solution came: battle cries. People began to realize that using minions with battle cries were about as effective as a spell plus a minion. As dumb as my explanation is, it seemed to work. Defender of Argus has risen to a new level of popularity and has become a staple of many decks. Not only does it increase stats and allow you to make better trades with your minions, but it also gives them taunt, which has effectively shut down a lot of the aggressive decks recently. Adding a defender to your deck seems to be the new thing, in quotations there. So why is defender so strong against aggressive decks? Well, before, aggressive decks faced a small amount of taunt on occasion, but they mainly focused on killing the opponent and leaving their minions alone. This ignoring of the minions generally put the defending player in a position to trade out his minions for theirs, otherwise you would die. But more than not, they would just pull out more minions later after you traded all your minions, and then you would have nothing on the field. When a taunt did come out, it would normally be silenced or taken out by a single removal spell or buffed minion. This meant you had to play even more taunt in your deck to survive this onslaught of aggressiveness. And honestly, the taunt options in the game seem lackluster and could be traded easily for these aggressive minions. For example, the 3/3 Grizzly, I can't remember, Iron Fur Grizzly, I think that's what it is. Iron Fur Grizzly taunt easily gets traded by the 3/1 charge minion in one turn, and boom, they still have all the other minions on the field. But Defender is a whole nother game. It puts 2 taunts out at once and buffs them up by +1/+1. Even if you silenced one, you'd have to trade a minion or even 2 for the other now that it's buffed. Defender literally stopped a lot of aggressive decks dead in their tracks and allowed the defending player to gain an advantage. So with the increase in Defender's popularity, we're now seeing a decline in aggressive decks, at least for now. Control decks are making a comeback, but control itself isn't going up. Buffs are. Defender is not a control card per se, it's a minion that buffs other minions. Shattered Sun Cleric, Sun Fury Protector, Dark Iron Dwarf, these minions are what is truly becoming popular, not because of their control aspect, but because of their ability to be both aggressive and control at the same time. These permanent buff cards can almost always be used as removal and control at the same time, as well as putting a threat on the board. These cards act as both aggressive and control, but we really can't call them combo cards. Can we? The only combo that Defender of Argus needs is a minion on the field already, or 2. This isn't a true combo because it doesn't rely on having a specific minion or a specific card, just really any minion to buff. These kind of cards don't really fit into any of these categories because they really do all 3 well. They are aggressive cards because you're putting out a big minion. They're control cards because you're adding taunt and you're doing some buffing of your minions so you can do better trades. And they're combo cards because they combo with any other minion on the board. So if you have any kind of board advantage, you just make it that much better. So these kind of cards are what is really taking over the game currently. But what makes these cards so strong? The value is in their cost. The Stormwind Champion is a huge, heavy hitter that buffs everything, but he costs an arm and a leg at 7 mana. It's these cheap buff cards, less than 5 mana generally, that are the key at stopping full-on aggressive decks in their tracks. A Stormwind Champion is not going to stop that early aggression, but a Defender or Sun Fury Protector just might. And they might even take out the next minion dropped with it as well. I would argue that the aggressive meta is slowly waning in popularity and is shifting towards these buff minions. So where do we go from there? The high-level players are already in their think tanks trying to figure out what beats buff minions, so I'll leave the speculation of the future to them. But I can't help but wonder what's better than a buffed-up field. Or more importantly, what can you do to stop it? Silence can be useful to stop them, but it's quite limited in availability. You really don't have a lot of silence options in the game right now. Sometimes AoE can be used, but often other buffs, after the buffs, the minions can really take at least 1 hit from your AoEs. We'll see how the meta shapes and changes over the coming weeks. My bet is that some combo cards will start showing up that counter buffed minions, but suffice it to say, the aggressive meta is shifting towards control currently, and buffed minions are pulling the cart. They're pulling the wagon. I'm interested to see what will happen, and even more interested to see what kind of decks will emerge from this shift in the meta, I guess, is what you'd say. So this week's viewer question is, which type of deck, control, or combo do you prefer to play? Please leave your comments in the comment section below, and I'll pick a few to read for the next episode. I guess, yeah. Deck, aggressive. I guess I didn't say that. Which type of deck, aggressive, control, or combo do you prefer to play? Either way, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Weekly Coin. If you'd like to send in a suggestion for future topics or have questions you'd like me to answer on the show, please send an email to the.weekly.coin@gmail.com. Please like, favorite, subscribe, share, all that jazz if you like the series, and, as always, you keep it salty, Internet.